sad, but apparently that's just a mood. I know the past 3 months don't mean.
Hello and welcome to the Roker Report Lasses podcast in association with Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen and HerGameToo, the campaign against sexism and misogyny in football. We're here for a quick discussion pod, really. It's been a big few days for Sunderland FC Women. We've had contracts signed, players released, players retained, and some new signings as well as goings on with the under-23s too. So loads and loads of things to talk about and update Sunderland fans about. And I'm delighted to be joined for this quick discussion by Charlotte Patterson. How are you this evening, Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Rich. How about yourself?
I'm all right, yeah. Glad to be talking about like football-related stuff rather than off-the-field shenanigans, which have been for Roker Rapport, and there's plenty that people can listen to and read on the Roker Report website about the goings-on off the pitch at Sunderland, but also about some of the goings-on at Sunderland AFC Women. So I guess we should start really when the news started to come out of the club. There's been a series of releases over the last kind of week or so, and the first thing, Charlotte, was Mel Ray and Steph Libby signing new contracts, and the big part of that really is Mel Ray going full-time and leaving Gateshead College. Were you shocked at that news? It came a little bit out of the blue.
Yeah, I suppose, we know that Mel's worked with Gateshead College now for, I'm sure it was nearly 20 years that she's been there.
Yeah.
And during that time, she's had fantastic success. Particularly if you look at this season alone, the team, they won 3 trophies. I suppose, it's their loss but our gain, really. But it's one of those where it's a bit of a statement of intent by the club. For quite some time we've wondered about if we're stagnating a little bit, and I think the news of Mel obviously signing a new contract and it being full-time rolling contract, and with Steph Libby remaining at her sides, actually probably the biggest contract news that we could have, because Mel's been with us through thick and thin, and particularly the brunt of it. When she took over from us, it was when we were wrongly demoted into the 3rd tier of women's football, and she's seen the lows, but she's taken us through the highs, and who better to have at the helm than her. She's developing a fantastic side, and she's got Steph Libby, who joined from Durham previous season, and the two of them are doing fantastic for the team.
Yeah, there was a bit written on the website this week in an editorial that I put together, comparing Alex Neil and Mel Ray's contract situation. And this 12-month rolling contract, I think, gives both of the head coaches of the senior teams a lot of leverage over the club, actually, that if things are not going in the right direction, they may well move on. Mel, while she was working at Gateshead College, obviously had that tie to the northeast, I guess, in that sense. She wasn't necessarily going to be poached by a WSL team outside the region, because obviously she's got the potential to manage as high up the pyramid as she wants. And similar with Alex Neil, really, they're probably both managing slightly below their actual kind of potential level, and Sunderland are going to have to match their ambitions. So I thought that was a really interesting move on her part. It does beg the question about kind of, obviously the rest of the team is still part-time. What do you think she'll be doing during the day when some of the other lasses are either at work or at college or at university?
Yeah, it's just sort of keeping busy with those that haven't, obviously that can go to the training sessions. We'll get onto it a little bit later, but we've obviously had a lot of news regarding players that we've retained, those that have left, new players coming in. So it's going to be a very busy couple of weeks, months. Obviously, we know that there's some parts of pre-seasons already started with some of the lasses heading back to training. And it's exciting times sort of ahead, really. Obviously Mel's got her work cut out, but I'm sure it's something that she's gonna take in and be in her element, really. I think with this extra time that she can actually commit to the side now.
Yeah, I think it'll help a lot in terms of actually integrating her into the rest of the coaching staff at the club. and taking advantage of all of those people who were around the club 9 to 5, who may have gone home by the time her and the lasses have been getting to training on Tuesdays and Fridays during the season. So hopefully, for me, it'll mean that she gets more access to some of the off the field support that Alex Neil and the men's side get as well. But you mentioned new contracts. There were 5 new contracts signed, all of which are established players in the first team. Obviously, Kira Ramshaw, Emma Kelly, Louise Griffiths, Emily Scarr, and Jess Brown. So we've got from youngsters all the way up to kind of senior members of the team there renewing their deals. And a deal on the table for Grace Boyers as well, who's one of the youngsters who's brought in last season. You did an article for Roker Report that went out on Thursday. Just looking over those 5 players in your overall, looking at all 5 as a group, are you happy? Are those the players we really needed to retain?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly with the likes of Ramshaw and Joyce, obviously what we have at Sunderland is a very young and talented squad, and what we still need to make sure that we have is those sort of experienced, calm, composed figureheads within the squad. I mean, we know exactly that, Ramshaw, she's been at the club, she loves the club, and leads by example for the rest of the players. And Abby Joyce was absolutely fantastic last season. She was pivotal in most games that she played, always sort of dictating the way that we play, the pace of the game, and getting involved in terms of getting forward. Whereas on sort of the other end, you've got the likes of Emma Kelly, who I think this season with every passing game she's just improved time and time again. I mean, we saw that with the final game of the season against Bristol City. She was absolutely fantastic. And then we've got the likes of Emily Scarr and Jess Brown, who are sort of they've had their experience, but they're kind of still up and coming, really. They're still young, they've still got a lot to give, and we've had glimpses of what's to come under them, really, and they can only develop further under the tutelage of Steph and Mel, really, with the addition of the fact that they've signed these new contracts.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that kind of development stage is where a lot of the squad are at, and it's good to see that overall the vast majority of the squad that was so successful in achieving the goal of staying in the Championship last season will be there next season with a season under their belt and a lot more experience and having knowledge of even just where they're going, the clubs they're going to be playing at, the stadiums they'll be travelling to, some of the players they'll be coming up against. I think that will all be invaluable. There'll be 3 players in the squad who won't be in the squad next season. Daisy Burke we haven't seen much of since she was called up from the RTC, and we understand she might possibly be going over to Durham's development squad. Eve Blakey is going off to the US. That's not news for Sunderland fans who keep their eye on what's going on, and many players have taken that path before. Some have come back to Sunderland, some have come back and gone on to better things as well. So we wish her all the best. I'm sure it'll be absolutely wonderful experience over, I think it's Louisiana she's going. But I guess the headline release is Maria Farrugia. Somebody who I think divides opinion amongst Sunderland fans. Some have not really seen what she adds. Some have always been excited to see her on the pitch, and she's got a lot of potential. What do you make of Sunderland not being able to sign her or not being able to offer the kind of deal that she wants?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just touched on it there, that I think for some of us it was quite a surprise, really. I mean, Farrugia's one of them that, she didn't always get on the score sheet or contribute in terms of assists, but she was always a regular in Mel's starting 11. She featured in pretty much nearly every game this season. She came through to the side as a Foundation of Light scholar, and she's always played with this sort of air of confidence, finesse and skill. You could kind of see that when you were watching her, exactly what she was trying to do, and she just had that little bit more impetus than sort of the rest of the players in trying to create something slightly different. I think it's just unfortunate for Farrugia that sometimes it didn't work out. Part of that might have been, given the squad depth that we had. because I know at times, she was played up front on her own, and I don't think at times she particularly liked that. She might prefer to sort of sit in behind Emily Scarr, or just the way in which we sort of laid out the formation of the team. I don't think always sort of worked to her strengths. But one thing you can say about Farrugia is that she was an incredibly talented player, and I mean, you forget that she's still so young because it just feels like she's been on the scene for quite some time. But yeah, I think it's just unfortunate really that her time on Weirside's obviously come to an end, and that the potential that she had hasn't quite sort of lived up to the expectations of the rest of us. But I mean, none of us will be forgetting in any hurry that absolutely fantastic goal she scored this season against Sheffield United, in which she ran onto the through ball from Niamh Herron and then chipped it over the keeper to help us win 4-1. It was absolutely spectacular, and it won our Roper Report goal of the season. But like you touched on, I think the plan is for Farrugia to stay in England. There's rumours that there's championship clubs that are also interested in her. We were speculating as to whether she would return back to Malta and join the Football League there. But kind of like what we touched on with the likes of Eve Blakey and Daisy Burke, we wish them all the best in their future endeavours.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, with Maria, for me, she actually played her best football for us when she was up front on her own. And that was where I thought she was the most effective, because she was very good at pressing, and she could also run out of defence with the ball at her feet, which I was really impressed with, particularly in games against opposition where we maybe weren't expected to have much of the ball. She worked really, really hard. I think played further back, her head often went down. She probably saw more of the ball. And sometimes the end product wasn't quite there, but I don't think there was ever an issue with attitude, and I think there's a player in there where somebody might get the best out of her. Maybe she does need full-time training. Maybe she needs to go to a club that can offer her a full-time contract and that kind of wrap-around support. And so maybe we will come to rue this at some point in the future when she, it's a very Sunderland thing for players to come back and score against us. Molly Lambert seems to do it every time she takes a field against us, so we'll see. And talking of Molly Lambert, she's a player who was announced as being retained by Durham, or looks like she's going to be retained by Durham as they go full time. Which was announced today, which is Thursday when we're recording. They announced that they're going full-time. They also, in that announcement, said that they realise that means that some players who have outside careers won't be able to be kept on by the club, which opened up an opportunity for us, clearly, because by the end of the day, we've signed Nicki Gear, a striker, 29-year-old striker who's been injured with an ACL injury for a couple of years. And we do have form with taking on strikers from Durham who've been out with an ACL injury and that not quite working out. But we've also signed somebody very familiar to the club, re-signing Abby Holmes, the defender. So your views on those transfers. First of all, Nicki Gear, what do we know about her? And do you think that is an important position for us to start recruiting players in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we've sort of been talking about the last few weeks is exactly where we can sort of strengthen in the side. One of the sort of, I don't want to say necessarily weak points, but there was a few times last season where we just lacked that squad depth. Whether if we'd had players who could come on towards the end of the game, that could change, the sort of outcome. And I feel like Gears is one of those players. I've been chatting to quite a few Durham fans, and they all rate her so highly. She's been very unfortunate that she was out for a large part of this season through injury, but I think she came back for a couple of fixtures towards the latter part. But yeah, for me, I think she's a brilliant signing. She's been with Durham pretty much since their inception in 2014, 2015. And each year she's sort of grown and grown in terms of her ability and her development. without a shadow of a doubt, she's a talented player, and one that, we're fortunate to have on our hands. We've been looking to add to our sort of attacking impetus for quite some time. Obviously, with the news that Farrugia's leaving, that does leave a very huge hole at the top in terms of who do we have to rely on to score goals, or even just in terms of you creating that attack. And I think with Gears, she's so adaptable and flexible. I mean, there's times where she's played at right wing, and she's played in attacking midfield. And I think for those few games that she did play for Durham this season, she has actually started up front. And the fact that she's actually been given the number 9 suggests to me, given, the history behind a number 9 shirt, it is for somebody who is an out-and-out striker. So hopefully, she'll be linking up with maybe the likes of Emily Scarr, who quite seems to like to play on the right wing, and then having Abby Joyce sitting behind Gears, and then potentially, Holly Manders or Grace Seed on the left. And I just think she's definitely one that the Durham fans seem to be quite upset about, that she's gone, and really enjoyed watching her play. So it kind of goes to show that we've got somebody very talented on our hands.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to hear. We like it when fans of other clubs don't want their players to leave, and we get them. And I think, as you've described, somebody with such long experience in Tier 2 up front, I think it's one of the things we just haven't had in the squad. Someone who knows how to put the ball in the back of the net at this level. I think it's one thing I was talking about, I think in our group earlier, is some of the attributes that a player like Abby Harrison has, is just experience of knowing how to score at this level, and so hopefully that's what we're buying with Nicki, and hopefully she'll be able to put these injuries behind her. Hopefully it hasn't affected one of her main attributes, which has always said to be pace, too bad. Because these ACL injuries, particularly when people have been playing on plastic pitches, are often really, really hard. And we saw with Iris Achatov last year that sometimes they're really hard to get over. But Nicki's a more experienced player, an older woman with a chance to kind of really do something impressive at Sunderland as you say, the number 9, the main striker. So I think that's a great sign-in. But we've got to talk about Abby Holmes. I mean, that was a little bit out of the blue, that one today. I think there's been talk about legends returning to the club in one guise or another, and I don't think we really saw Abby as that player who would come in. But wow, I mean, in terms of experienced Championship and WSL players who've won things with us, they don't come much better pedigree than Abby Holmes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, up until pretty much this morning when it came out about Durham going full time, we were already starting to speculate in our sort of group chat, because we know that Abby Holmes works as a teacher, and that was when we were starting to think, she potentially, because of her working full time as a teacher, that this would be the best solution for her, because she doesn't need to move, and she can still play football and she can still work as a teacher. So yeah, I mean, she's an absolutely brilliant acquisition. I mean, she's excellent. She played for us between sort of 2014 and 2017. And I think she spent a year for Dutch side PEC Zwolle before returning back to the northeast for Durham, where she's played for sort of the last 3 seasons, I think. But like you touched on, I mean, she's an incredibly experienced player, which, I mean, can only seek to benefit what is a largely young squad, like we touched on before. She's typically, when she's played for Durham, she's played at left back, but when she was previously with Sunderland, she's played at right back, and she's also filled in at centre back sometimes during the season for the Wildcats. So, having somebody of her calibre alongside, the likes of Grace McCarthy, who has that, veteran and experience as well, I think can only just seek to shore things up at the back for us. I mean, she played 20 matches last season for Durham, scoring 2 in a pretty emphatic home win against Blackburn, and she's heavily involved in the game, running up and down the left wing, looking to overlap with the winger to create chances. So I think, again, we're adding somebody who's not only sure at the back and defensively solid and has that experience, but we're also adding someone who, again, adds to our attack.
Yeah, well, she definitely got involved with Niamh Heron on the pitch at the at Maiden Castle in the Sunderland game there towards the end of the season, where they were squaring up after a challenge. But I think actually that's probably a really good sign that we've got someone who's a just really experienced competitor, knows the league, can go head to head with one of the best players in the league, which Niamh Heron undoubtedly is, and now she's going to be lining up in the same team. And I think one thing on that is, by bringing in a player who is adaptable as Abby Holmes across the back line, might mean that, as we've talked about on several occasions with Abby Towers and what she did when she came into the side, was freeing up Niamh Heron to play in that kind of quarterback kind of midfield role. Who knows who else might be coming into the midfield as well by the end of the window. And I think there is scope for further improvement across that squad, definitely. If you were to say where we still, obviously we've lost 3 players from the squad. Okay, one younger player. We've lost 2 forwards, brought 1 forward and a defender in. Where else across the squad would you say that Sunderland should be looking to fill the gaps?
Yeah, I think really the main one is up front. I know we've just talked obviously about Nicki Gears and bringing her in and that she can play in that position. I know at times we've had Emily Scarr in that position, but I think we really do need that experienced striker up front, because I mean that was definitely where we were lacking last season, is having somebody who can sort of take the game by the scruff of the neck and just be clinical in front of goal. You know, doesn't have to be the prettiest, but like you were talking about with Abby Harrison, that she just has this innate ability of finding herself in the best positions. And not only that, but she's also got the sort of the strength and the pace to just hustle through players. And I think that's just something that we need. I mean, we've got a really good core group of players. And I think, you know, like what we've just talked about before with what players we've retained was really key, because I think we do have a very fantastic squad on our hands. I think it's just about adding to that depth. Like I said, there was a few times last season where if you look at the subs bench, there wasn't really much to come on in terms of, say, if we were losing a game, that could maybe turn the game on its head and help us, you know, come back to equalise or even to take the win. So I definitely think adding, you know, maybe 1 or 2 more signings up front, and then in centre back as well. I know we've touched on that the likes of Abby Holmes can fill in there, but just with the fact that we know that Grace McCarthy, obviously with her work, can sometimes be away. Abby Towers slotted in at the back and was brilliant, but there was times where we've had to rely on the likes of Niamh Heron dropping back there, and obviously her natural position is in midfield, and that's where she's the most dangerous, really. So I think just having that extra depth, because you never know. There's been times during this season where we've had suspensions, where we've had injuries. We've had the likes of Megan Beer, who usually plays right back, who's had to fill in at centre back, and I think Louise Griffiths as well, who's had to fill in at centre back. So I think just shoring up those areas, but I definitely think adding more to our attack is probably the most key area, really.
Yeah, the only kind of factor that I think a lot of people are slightly not grasped is that we may well lose Kira Ramshaw for a certain amount of time, depending on when her partner gives birth, and therefore she'll be entitled to some very well-earned maternity leave, and I'm sure we'll benefit from it, because I know exactly what it's like to have a little and newborn screaming in the house. You can't work whether you're the one who's given birth or not. So I think there is scope for an experienced midfielder to come in. I think we can look about the players who've been released from across the leagues, and we'll find somebody really suitable for that. Obviously, we're limited to players who are either from the northeast and want to come back, or willing to, or have a second career that is portable. Maybe they work from home. Maybe they've got a job as, you know, they're a nurse, they're a teacher, doctor, where, you know, you can move within the system and find alternative roles in different parts of the country. But that's what we're relying upon as a part-time outfit. But what we have got is world-class training facilities. We've got great coaching, we've got great analytics, and we've got a history of youth development. And that's the kind of the final thing that's came out over the last few days, which is obviously they've had the trials, two sets of trials for under 23s. A lot of players graduated from the RTC over the summer. It was lovely to see them all at their graduation ceremony at the Stadium of Light, and they all looked like they had a fantastic time, and hopefully some of those have been putting themselves forward for the under-23s. But they announced the league at which they're going to be competing, because Alex Clark, the general manager, was going to the Durham FA to put our case for having an under-23 team included in the senior setup of the women's pyramid in our county in Durham. So where are we going to be?
Yeah, so we had confirmation that we're going to be playing in the Durham County FA League One, which will see us playing the likes of Gateshead, Darlington, Chelsea Street, Concert, Towlaw, which actually happens to be the team that I used to play for a couple of years back. So that's certainly going to be very interesting, particularly for away games. I get to sort of see a few familiar faces. But yeah, I mean, the league itself it's a very mixed bag. It's similar to the Championship, not in terms of obviously quality, but in terms of the unpredictability of it. Because I feel on any kind of given day that anybody can beat anyone. Over the course of the last couple of years, obviously when I had played for the team, there was some seasons where you would have the teams that were, the top dogs doing really well one season, and then the next they can completely fall off. So I definitely think it's in Sunderland's hands. I would be very shocked and surprised if I didn't see them either dominate the league, if not getting, promoted after this season. I mean, I know they are a new group, but like you touched on before, they're going to be having full access to all the resources, the training, the facilities. They're going to be training with the Sunderland senior, like women's side. They're going to be training at the Foundation of Light and the Beacon of Light, and having access to them. And I think one of the big positive is, like you said, is securing the fact that we are in the Division 1, because I know when we had the general manager Alex Clark on the Twitter Spaces, that he wasn't too sure as to whether we would secure that or whether it would be the development league. And obviously they were trying the hardest naturally to have Sunderland U23s go into the higher division. So I'm glad that we've achieved that, because the whole purpose of this is for us to develop players that can come into the senior side, and we need them to be getting valuable learning experience. And we can't be playing against oppositions where it's just going to be very heavily one-sided. They're not going to be getting much from that. So it's definitely going to be interesting. I mean, I remember from what Alex was saying is that the likelihood is they'll play the majority of the games sort of at the Beacon of Light, and that I think
it's at the academy.
Oh, sorry, at the academy. Yeah, that's right. And but that there was some hope that some of the games might well be at Eppleton. Obviously, it's very dependent on what the men's U23s are doing, and obviously what the Sunderland women are doing. But there is hope that we will be able to have some fans watching their games at Eppleton at some point during the season.
Definitely, and what it also does is gives Sunderland ladies fans another option for an away day on those occasions when the seniors are playing away, and Sunderland will be playing in Gateshead or, as you say, Towlaw, Hartlepool, all around the northeast, where we can get to on the bus, on the train, in the car, maybe on the metro. I think that would be lovely, just to have another game to go and see. And that'll be class, and I think it's going to be really good. The fact that I think Alex confirmed today they're not going to take part in the FA Cup. They probably wouldn't be able to anyway. They are going to take part in the Durham County Cup, which will mean that we get the chance to possibly even win a trophy. And we know that can be a really competitive competition as well, and another chance for those under 23 players to actually play against players from much higher up in the pyramid as well, against Durham Sestria, for example, who I think won it last year, did they? The Durham County Cup. Yeah, they hammered. They won by like 8-0 in the final or something like that.
Yeah, I think that was the game that Ant attended in Jarrow, wasn't it? The final.
Yeah. But there's a good opportunity there, and I think it's great that they're playing senior football against women, and that there will be the ability for that team to move up the pyramid, because I think it does Durham a lot of good having Sestria at tier 4. And I think, is this tier 6? Am I right with that?
As far as I'm aware, yes, yeah, because I think the development side's tier 7, so yeah. Right.
So, they're 2 promotions away from the kind of level that Sestria and Newcastle and Leeds United and teams like that are at. So there's the opportunity there for them to move up, and they are an under 23 squad, but I guess a lot of them are going to be well under 23. So they're going to be around that squad possibly for a couple of years, especially if the seniors keep bringing in such quality that we've brought in today. So I think that's just about where we're up to. We've got the Euros coming up. The squad for the Euros is going to be announced on the 15th of June. Hopefully people's tickets will be dropping, because I'm getting a bit kind of nervous watching my post box every day, waiting for the postie to bring my tickets for Old Trafford to the door. But it's going to be a great summer of football. People keep saying there's no football to watch. There's going to be loads of football to watch. And even by the time the Euros are finished, the men's will be starting up again. So are you looking forward to consuming? I know you consume as much football as you can, so I guess the Euros is just going to be like heaven for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just fantastic. I mean, having it in your own backyard, it's an absolutely brilliant time. I mean, the Euros are fantastic as they are, but, I think we always see when certain countries will, have these football tournaments that we see a huge influx in sort of interest and, people taking up the sport. So it can only, spell huge benefits for, young girls and young boys out there who, watch the Euros and really want to, believe that they can become a footballer and want to pursue, playing it, or whether it's for a hobby or for a career.
And there's plenty for Sunderland fans to follow. Half of the squad have played for us at one point or another with the Lionesses, and who knows what will be the happening over the summer in relation to Sunderland and the Lionesses. So we'll wait and see with bated breath about some of those potentials, and just say thanks a lot for your time, Charlotte.
No, thank you very much.
What I will say is Charlotte's continuing series about the individual players, little profiles and interviews. We've got loads of them lined up on the site. I've been very busy and haven't been able to edit them, but I will get to them and we will put them out over the next few weeks in the run-up to the Euros. And then when we hit the Euros, we will have podcasts, we will have reports, we will have all sorts on the website, keeping you up to date with what's going on with the Lionesses, and particularly the Sunderland or the ex-Sunderland players who will be representing England in their home Euros. Look forward to speaking to you then, and Sarah.
Chemistry, biology, toxic misogyny.